Welcome to the Modern Marketing Loan Officer Podcast, brought to you by the Shining Star Hero Home Buying Program. Each week, successful loan officers share their experiences so that you can grow your mortgage business. Here's your host, Enrique Braunschweiger.
Well, welcome everybody. This is Enrique Braunschweiger. I am the owner of First West Financial, and this is another episode of the Modern Marketing Loan Officer Podcast brought to you by the Shining Star Hero Program. And today I have a special person, somebody that I look up to, somebody that is a good friend, and somebody that knows a lot about our industry. So I am very, very excited to introduce to you Brianna Harris, who is the head of business operations for ARIVE. Brianna, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Absolutely. We are so happy that you're here. Now, you are located in Nashville, correct?
Yes.
Is that where you're at today?
Yes, and it's beautiful outside today. It's been so cold,
so
and it's like finally like 65 degrees. It's nice.
Nashville is a great city. How long have you been there now?
A little over a year. I love it. I came from Philadelphia, and could not be happier out here.
That's phenomenal. So you had to decide. Okay, when you went to ARIVE, you're thinking maybe I'll go to Northern California. I was like, no, I'm going to Nashville, right?
Yeah. Harish has tried to get me to come to the Bay Area. He loves it out there, but yeah,
of course.
I'm stuck
you need
here.
$27 million to buy a one-bedroom apartment. That's the problem there.
That's what I said.
Anyway, well, for those that are listening, we have a lot of brokers that are listening, but then we also have a lot of people who may not be familiar with Brianna, right? And Brianna works for ARIVE, and ARIVE is a great partner of ours, but it's also a great partner for a lot of people. And this is not a commercial for ARIVE. I just would love for Brianna to tell us a little bit about who she is and what she does and what is her background before we get started talking about a very, very, very special topic that we're going to talk about today in the Modern Marketing Podcast. Go ahead.
Yeah. So like you said, I am the head of business operations at ARIVE, which really means that I run all of the marketing and sales for the company. Prior to that, I got into the mortgage industry through AIM, which is the Association of Independent Mortgage Experts. I was one of the social media managers there and got promoted to the community manager. So I oversaw all of Brokers Are Better and the Women's Mortgage Network. It was a diving straight into the mortgage industry, helped me, get to know our community, bring our community together, and really get to know what the industry is all about. Prior to that, I went to Pittsburgh State University for fine arts. So I've always had a creative background. I love painting, website design, the mix of digital art and traditional art. From there, I got a full ride scholarship to get my master's at the New Hampshire Institute of Art, and was first working for some nonprofits before getting into the mortgage industry.
That's amazing. You are the only second person that we've had in our podcast that has not originated a loan.
Yeah,
but
never.
That doesn't mean you don't know about mortgages. You know a lot about mortgages. You know a lot about our industry. But I think you bring a different perspective because you understand maybe the perspective from just a regular person that doesn't have to worry about verifications of employment and appraisals and all that. We sometimes are tainted by that in the way that we operate, right? So I'm going to tell you this. Part of the reason why I decided to bring the Modern Marketing Loan Officer Podcast, I do this as a hobby out of my own time, and it has been growing in audience. And the reason why I do this is because when I started as a loan officer, I started because I wanted to do mortgages, right? I wanted to make money and sell mortgages. And what I didn't realize is a few weeks into becoming a loan officer, this is 16, 17 years ago, I realized I needed to learn accounting. I needed to learn marketing. I needed to learn. And then as things are coming out, social media, when I started, there was no social media. There was, the internet was very rudimentary. We were still doing files on paper. So it's a learning process that can be very difficult for loan officers, especially those that are with small teams, maybe independent loan officers, maybe brokers or bankers who work by themselves. It can be overwhelming. How do I market? Not a day goes by that I don't get a phone call or an email or a message to say, hey, I need help. Can you tell me how I can do this or that or the other? So this podcast is dedicated to hopefully educate and bring information to the loan officer. So what we do is we focus on one specific topic. 1 week may be about video. It may be about YouTube. It may be about Instagram. It may be about the different things that as a loan officer, I have to learn. Like I'm now freaking out about TikTok because I'm not on TikTok yet, full on. But it's like I gotta learn. Well, how do I learn, right? I'm gonna have to learn from someone else that's doing it, that's willing to share. So we're gonna have someone here that's gonna teach us about TikTok. But today we have Brianna, who is going to talk about a topic that I think is crucial, and it is branding. We are gonna talk about branding. Let me tell you, you have done a phenomenal, phenomenal job with the branding of the company that you work for now. I mean, this was a small company with a few subscribers, but a solid product, right? And having a solid product doesn't necessarily mean you're going to succeed. You have to brand it and you have to put it out there. Tell us why branding?
Yeah, so branding is saying important does not even do it justice. Branding is everything. It's what makes you memorable to your consumers. It's what sets an expectation for your business, and it is really what differentiates you from your competition.
Right. And a lot of people think that just advertising or marketing is branding, but it goes really beyond that, right? You have to package the entire thing. Now, there are some books out there about branding. There's a couple of places where, you learn about maybe story branding and different techniques and all that. But do you think loan officers are missing the mark on this for the most part?
Yes. And it's very easy to miss the mark. Branding is not difficult, but it is a little consuming in the beginning. I think where people miss the mark is that they overthink it. They don't understand that branding is exactly who you are. So leaning in and getting to know yourself is the best way for you to brand your business. And then just staying consistent. And, I tell people all the time, I tell brokers, make a list of who you are, what makes you, your likes, your dislikes, things about you. Were you in the military? Did you come from a unique background? Lean in on those because those are what brands your company and brands you.
Right. But it can be also very overwhelming because you want to be able to talk about rates. You want to be able to talk about service. Yes. You want to talk about price. You want to talk about how you help first-time buyers, but you also want to talk about how you do jumbo loans. And the message can get very, very muddy, right? I'm very fortunate that I have someone by my side in terms of marketing, and that is Sarah, who's our marketing director. And a while back, she suggested that we did what we call story branding, right? And we went on a website, and you can just Google story branding. There's tons of resources there. And we actually created a story about who we are as a company. So we had to come up with what are our beliefs and what do really we believe in and how do we get there. And that basically gave us the opportunity to share with people what is it that we are about, right? And I think some loan officers do a great job and some of them not so much. So what are some of the things that you want loan officers to focus on when it comes to creating a brand? Is it just a logo? Is it a slogan? Or is it more than that?
It's far more than that. Those, your logo and your slogan, important. Having those consistent fonts and colors and things like that, of course, stay with that. Keep that branding. But more than that, research your targeted audience and your competition. Who is your demographic? What is your niche? Don't be something that you're not. And, your audience can see genuine and they can see when you're not being genuine. So be who you are and stay consistent in that. And be vulnerable. That's a big one. Be vulnerable. Yes.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to really show yourself, right?
Yes. Especially when all of these new platforms are coming out like TikTok and things like that. It's very easy to feel silly or that you're doing it wrong, but that's okay. Maybe who you are is a silly, free kind of person. Lean in on who that is.
Right. It makes a lot of sense. I saw you doing some new TikTok advertisings and you are stepping out of the box a little bit yourself, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I was going to say, I know you had Skylar Welch on not too long ago, and
yes,
you did a pie eating contest. And, she's also not afraid to use her brand and who she is to relate to her audience.
I mean, she's such an authentic person. And sometimes you think, well, I don't want to look silly or I don't want to look unprofessional. When in reality, people love her how she is, and that's just perfect, right?
Yeah.
So when are you going to fly and get Harish on some of those TikToks and do some of that stuff? Pretty soon, I hope, right?
Hopefully soon. We've got some events coming up, so it's perfect opportunity.
I think he'll be okay. I don't think he has a lot of inhibitions either. I think he'll jump right in.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to hold back even a little bit. I'm excited to see it.
I like that. Now, going back to the serious thing, that's something that I'm going to share with you a little bit about what I do as my part of my branding, right? What I've learned is that I have a passion for teaching and educating people. I have a gift to be able to explain things. So I decided a while back that I was going to start recording pieces of content that are designed to educate others. But when you talk about being vulnerable, one of the first things I noticed is that I hated the way I sound, and I hated the way I look, and I hate this and I hate that. And that was holding me back. And then it wasn't until I got encouraged by my wife who says, hey, look, you're great. Just go for it, right? Don't watch your recordings. Just, you have so much knowledge and so much to give and so much care for people. So that's what we do now. I record 10 to 11 pieces of educational content for consumers and realtors every single week. In fact, right here is my green screen. I come in on Saturdays. I spend 2 hours recording. I record all the materials. I bring in 5-6 shirts. I change. And I wonder sometimes, like, but that's part of my brand. That's who I am. I want to be the one that educates people, right? So I go to these conventions and I run into loan officers, and what do they say to me? Man, I just love your videos. I love how you educate others. Thank you, And that just makes me realize that even though I don't get a lot of likes or comments sometimes, people are watching, right?
Yes.
So what are some of the tools that a regular loan officer, maybe someone with a little bit of a budget, can use in order to create that brand? Is there anything out there that you would recommend, or just basically putting it together themselves? What are some thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there are a ton of platforms that are inexpensive and very user-friendly. I spend hours upon hours researching what's new, what we can use, just so I can help other brokers utilize it and it can be top of mind. The number one, and I hope everybody uses it or starts to use it, is Canva. Canva is amazing. There's a free option and there's a paid option. The paid is still very inexpensive, but it's a great way to create graphics. You can create animated graphics. You can import some video. You can do some sound bites in there. There's so many options. Yes.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. There's so many options. It upsets me a little bit because I spent years in college learning Photoshop, and I wish I just had Canva the whole time.
Canva came in and went, not today.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's super cheap, right? Like the subscription is like a few dollars a month, and it does everything. I don't use Canva, but Sarah does. And she does a lot of stuff on Canva. And you know what? And I'm gonna tell you, one suggestion that we can offer to people is that if you're not very, very maybe as artistic, but you have concepts, you can go and contract some of the people that can do a great job on Canva for very little money. You can go to Upwork or you can go to Fiverr, and there are Canva experts there that can take some of your ideas and put them into work, right?
Yeah. They also have free templates for you to utilize. So you just switch out information. It's very easy to plug your headshot and your logo in there. And then you can just save your work in folders. So it also helps you stay organized.
So that's a great start, because I think that's part of what holds people back, is they go, man, I'm gonna have to hire an advertising company to create my logo and to create all of those things, when you can create logos for pennies on the dollar online, and they're professional. And then you can take all that into Canva and do some of the work. Yeah. But I think you also mentioned what's important is really to sit down with a notepad and write down, who are we as a company? What are our goals? Who's our audience, right? And when you do that, you're going to be able to identify really how to brand, not just the color and not just the image, but also the content that you're going to be presenting, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think with my whole heart that if you are trying to brand your company or who you are, and you're not being yourself, or you're not allowing yourself to be a part of that branding, there's going to be a point where you get tired of it, because you have to put on this persona, or not be your genuine self. So make sure you put yourself into your branding.
Now, we know that social media is king right now. right?
Yeah.
And we're very fortunate because I can tell you, if we were living 10 or 15 years ago and you wanted to get your name and your image out there, you had to get print ads on magazines. You had to go spend money on television or magazines or the newspaper or whatever. With social media, you can do so much for no money, right? Like paying practically no money. You don't have to, especially if you're in a small market, you can really flood your market for with very little money. What are some of the things that you would think in terms of promoting the brand that you can do with basic social media? What are some of the suggestions here?
Yeah, so basic social media, I would say the number one thing to think about is how to be relatable when you're branding yourself, you're creating your content. But really, if you want to get into the weeds a little bit, use Facebook Business Suite. It's free for your business page. It allows you the opportunity to schedule. It lets you see insights, your demographic, and it really helps your brand evolve. And it helps you look deeper into what you're putting out there because you can see how people are engaging in your posts and you can choose to pivot or lean in on what's doing well. But further than that, like we said before, be vulnerable, be consistent. Be consistent. Look at when are people on your channel, what days, what times, and consistently put content out there. And then engage. I think a lot of people forget that it's important to engage on social media. So just as you would want somebody to comment on your posts, comment on theirs, wish them happy birthday, give them likes. You'll get that in return.
Exactly. And also something that I keep forgetting to mention to people through the different podcasts that I've been doing, so we always talk about social media, is to do a little bit of a cleanup on your page in terms of what's on the page, right? Like I had an opportunity today to go to a loan officer's page because he wanted to ask me a question and I was going to send him a message. And I go, is this even the guy? Like, there's nothing here that tells me this guy is even in the business, right? And like, what a missed opportunity, right? So do a little cleanup, we're really not interested in what your previous jobs used to be. Like, hey, if you're a mortgage broker, put in your mortgage, you're a banker, put a banker. And then how to contact you. And then clean that up a little bit. And then look at your friends and go, hey, am I broadcasting to the same 250 people that I was doing a year or two ago when I started on Facebook? So that's a great opportunity too, right? To do some sharpening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to tell you, a big thing that I see that brokers miss is that you forget to link your brokerage Facebook business page on your personal page. So the minute somebody goes to your personal, it's easier for a consumer to remember your name sometimes than it is for them to remember the name of your brokerage. So if they find you first on Facebook, I hope that they can click on a link and be directed straight to your business page.
Right. We're gonna take a detour here. We're gonna talk about this real quick. This wasn't even on the script, but I think you're going to help me with this. Okay. This is my pet peeve. So one of the things that happens is when a lot of us got into social media, it was a personal thing. This is how we communicated with relatives or whatever, right? But a lot of us use it for business. So what we do is we created a business page. Like I have a First West Financial page, and then I have an Enrique Braunschweiger page. And for a while, 3 years ago, I was putting everything on the business page because I wanted to keep my personal. And then I realized nobody goes to my business page, like nobody. It's almost like counterintuitive that people are not interested in your business. They're interested in you. But then if you bring the business into your personal page, you get a lot of engagement. Mm-hmm. Tell me more about, what do you suggest? Do you suggest what I just said, which is really even it out?
So what I suggest is that you post a mix of business and maybe not necessarily personal, some personal, yes, but more, what's your community? How can you be the mayor of your community so that you can mix up that content that is on your business page, promote local sports teams, local restaurants, those sort of things, and then share from your business page onto your personal page, because that's driving engagement back to your personal page and helping that be top of mind. I tell broker, go ahead.
You agree that more people are going to look at the personal side than the business side by far?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of it is because you've spent so much time nourishing that personal page. You put things that are relatable and engaging, and you post probably more frequently on your personal page than your business. So let's flip the narrative and do mix up content on your business page, share it to your personal, and draw people back. That's how you're going to get them there.
Makes a lot of sense. We actually post pretty much my personal page has become almost a business page to a certain extent. But like this morning, for example, today was my last workout at my old gym. So I posted a picture of that and I'm getting a ton of likes and engagement and, oh, this is cool. But then right below it, there's an advertising for how I help the heroes in the community buy houses. And then right below that, I give an update on rates. And people are engaged in my personal. The mistake that I think people make is that they put everything on the business because they think that they need to separate it and they don't put anything on the personal, and then they have no success and then they get discouraged, right?
Yes, absolutely. And what is a downfall of the business page is you can't tag people. And I'm a big believer in tagging
That's
as many
right.
people
You can
as
tag
you
people.
can.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
how are people supposed to know when you're mentioning them or you're sharing pictures about them? So think about ways that, what is the best way to leverage your Facebook presence, between the
Right.
personal and business.
And if you are a loan officer, well, who's your target audience, right? Your friends, your family, a circle of friends, people that you know, your realtors that are in there. So that's definitely, without a doubt, that's something I wanted to sort of take a detour. Now, we're going to close up soon, but I wanted to go over a couple of things that I call the do's and don'ts, right? And I came up with a few, and then I have a personal story about that. But I want your opinion on, maybe elaborate on some of the do's and some of the don'ts.
Okay.
Do stay consistent.
Yes, absolutely. Consistency is key. Sometimes your consistency is going to mean so much more than what you're putting out. So if you are overthinking your posts, what your post copy says, which is the script above your post, don't just put it out. Because I promise you that you care so much more than your audience does sometimes. They're not
Right.
going to remember. If you don't get a bunch of likes on something, that's okay.
Right. This is my pet peeve, is the consistency part. And I think part of it is because we can be perfectionists. We want to do. So I'll tell you my personal story about consistency. I have been doing something called the Monday Mortgage Minute for 3 years, and I do it every single week. So do the math, right? I don't run out of topics. I mean, it's mortgages. You can always say, hey, rates are up, rates are down, rates are sideways, right? If anything. But so I do it. I record it quickly on a green screen. My editor overseas puts a little background. It's done in 10 minutes. And about a year and a half ago, one of my local competitors, who's a retail banker, mine's called the Monday Mortgage Minute. He came up with something called the Monday Mortgage Moment. And I'm like, dude, really? Like
That's pretty close.
The moment. But what really got me is like my wife comes in and goes, did you see this guy? Because he's got like this flash logo that, right? And it's like a music background and then like, wow. And he's like, he does his moment, right? And then I look at it and I go, okay. And then my wife goes like, doesn't that bother you? I go, no. And I said, why not? She goes, because he's going to do 1 or 2, watch. And sure thing, he did 2 episodes and that was that. So the reality is that the splash entry and the thing and the whole thing doesn't matter if you're not consistent. You're better off just taking a selfie at Starbucks and talking about mortgages and do it 50 times in a row, 50 weeks in a row, than doing the production, right? It's just, consistency is king.
I agree. And I think that people lose consistency when they overthink about things, whether that be on a perfectionist level or an engagement level. Like if something's not getting the engagement they want, instead of just slightly pivoting to maybe have new content or think about what they're saying, they'll just get rid of it. It's like, that's not always the right approach.
Exactly. Now, another do take risk.
Yes.
Do take risks.
How can you learn unless you take risks? It's okay for something to not work, but you need to give it a try and try it more than once. Don't just try it once and give up on it.
Right.
Try it more than once. Try TikTok, find other things that you think you could do. Like start easy. I tell people all the time, when it comes to taking risks, if you're really that nervous, post things on a story because it lasts for 24 hours and it's gone forever.
That's what I'm going to say. The stories are phenomenal. That's where a lot of people are just watching stories. I joke about the fact that my wife does not look at Instagram other than the stories. That's all she goes into Instagram for, stories,
Same.
And she follows people. And if a couple of days go by and some of them haven't posted, she's like, gee, I wonder what happened to them.
Yeah, it's fun. It's always new. It's engaging. Right. Yeah, I love stories.
And they're easy to record, and there's so many tools on that. Now let's take a look at a couple of don'ts. Do not look at likes and comments.
Yes, which is hard. And I mean, I fall victim to, I definitely look at likes and comments and my engagement level. I'm big on insights. I love looking at my insights to see how things are doing. But like I said before, don't let that be what stops you
Right.
from taking risks and creating content. Understand that Facebook has an algorithm. All these, they have an algorithm. So don't, it's not always, you doing a poor job. Sometimes people, it's just not reaching the right
Right.
crowd at the right time. So that doesn't mean to stop doing it.
Well, and I personally think that, especially when it comes to mortgage, when you're trying to educate, when you're trying to share people, when you're trying to tell stories, a lot of people will listen and move on, especially if you post consistently. And the number of likes and the number of comments and the number of hearts that you get have nothing to do with how many people are actually watching them, reading them, and being a part of it.
Yes.
For me, that was a big deal because I put a lot of content and a lot of it doesn't get any likes or anything, but I don't stop. I just go and go and go and go and go, right? And I get paid. We get calls. We get messages every day. We get people reaching out to us going, hey, I need a mortgage. Hey, and for me, the big thing was about a year and a half ago, I was in Orange County, which is about 200 miles from where I live. And I was at a restaurant standing in line to get food. And a person tapped my shoulder. And I go, yeah. She goes, you're that mortgage guy on the videos, right? And I just, like, my daughter, like, might have it. I have it. Not at the time when she was 18, she looked at me like, oh my God, my dad just got recognized. But what I realized is that this person may never comment, may never liked on any of it, but they watch them and they see them all the time. So the level of engagement you have is higher than the number of likes that you get. No question about it. So a couple of days ago, I posted a video on Brokes Are Better, and it had to do with, with some issues with related to people overcharging. And the video had, I don't know, maybe when you look at it, there were like 150 or 180 likes and about 32 comments. But then I went to BombBomb, which is where the source of the video was, and that video had been watched 2,000 times.
Wow.
Right? So 2,000 people have watched the video, only 158 have clicked like, and only 33 have commented. You can never look at that. So that's a big don't, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And then I have another do. So do post more than you think you need. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Post. I know some people, they want to stick to this very strict structure. Like, I'm going to post twice a day, and that's great. Like, if you need something to give you an incentive to post, like, I'm going to post twice a day, but don't think that that's your make it or break it. Like, you have to post 2 times.
Right.
Post when you want. Post as many stories as your heart desires.
Right. And if you don't believe me, ask Gary Vee, right?
Yes, exactly. When I worked at AIM, a big part of my job was getting to know members of the community. And the best way for me to get to know members of the community was just by scrolling through Facebook and seeing who was posting over and over and over again, and then reaching out to that person. If you weren't posting regularly, I probably never got to call you. Yeah.
Yeah. I was mentioning Gary Vee because there's times when I actually have to mute him for a couple of days just so I can take a break of Gary Vee. You're talking dozens and dozens of posts. Now, we're not going to be able to get to that level, but that goes to show you that he understands that two posts every other day is not going to do it. It's not going to do it. And I've had someone actually mention that social media is like a river, right? And you see a piece of wood floating and it goes by, and within minutes, it's already a mile down, right? Social media is the same way. If you post something today and a person didn't log in today to see it, it's possible they'll never see it. Like, if you're not literally there. So sometimes putting content 2-3 times a day is just as important because that's how you stay very, very relevant with people. For example, today I have not been almost on social media almost at all day. I'm going to miss a bunch of stories. I'm going to miss a bunch of stuff. It's just I'm not going to see it, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important that we stay consistent, but also put more time into it. Well, I really appreciate you taking time to come and share with us about your experience and your knowledge in this area. What else, as a parting message, what else would you tell that independent broker, that independent banker, that loan officer that's just getting started, that feels overwhelmed? How do you do that? What do you tell them?
I would tell them to stop making excuses on why you shouldn't. Just dive in and do it and just start. You've got to start somewhere. Sit down, think about your branding, and just start. Play around with it. Post as much as you can. And sometimes it does take that your brand forms over time. So sometimes you dive in first thinking you're one thing and your brand forms, and then you can lean in and be confident and have that name for yourself. Steal like an artist. You don't always have to reinvent the wheel. Recycle things that have done well. If you're busy, there's so many things out there that are going to help make life easier for you. Just don't overthink and just get started.
And don't be afraid to reach out. That's another thing in our community that has changed, and especially in the last few years, is that if you see something that you like or someone that's doing really great with some tool, or like people call me, hey, how do you do that screen recording? What tool do you use? Or they'll call say, hey, who's doing your editing? And I pass along the name. Don't be afraid to ask for help or for suggestions, right?
Absolutely. Many members of the community are always here to lean in on. I know that I will, if I'm on somebody's business page or on their personal page and I find something wrong, I don't hesitate to reach out and be like, hey, helpful hint, if you do this, it works like this. Yeah. Everybody's so willing to not only ask for advice, but also receive it.
Phenomenal. Well, let me tell you, I am a big fan, not only of what you do, but also your company. Okay. I always finish with a quick commercial, and I'll tell you, I'm a big fan of ARIVE. I've been with you guys almost since the beginning. And, when it was, like the little engine that could, and boy, let me tell you, it is a force to be reckoned with right now. We have our entire team, almost 22 people on ARIVE right now. And I cannot thank you guys enough for the work that you do and how you listen to the customer about improvements. It's unbelievable. I actually just made a suggestion of not an hour ago about some email, and the president of the company replied back, hey, we got this. Let me look into it. It's like, where do you see that? That's phenomenal. So you guys are doing great.
Thank you. And we're very happy to have you part of the community. You've been a great asset to us as well.
Absolutely. We just love ARIVE, and we love what you guys do. And you know what? And I'm going to say this, you may not want me to say this, but if anybody has questions or you want to pick Brianna's brain, she's always willing to help. Send her a quick direct message on Facebook, send her an email. How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can DM me on Facebook. My email is Brianna@arrive.com. Like Enrique said, I'm always available for the community. My big why is this community. So I want to see you all succeed, no matter what platform you're using. But I do think ARIVE would be the best for you. So reach out to me.
All right, thank you so much. Now, I'm going to say this last thing, and then we're going to say goodbye. But you may not know this, but when I was thinking about doing this podcast, you were the first person I emailed, and I said, hey, can you give me a list of people? And you actually gave me like 10 names. Out of those 10 names, 7 have been on our podcast, right?
That's
and then
awesome.
I realized, wait a minute, I have to invite Brianna to be on the podcast. So you were the first one that gave us the list. I really appreciate that. And you nailed it. Some of these people are phenomenal marketers and loan officers. And we've been able to tap into their knowledge. So thank you, Brianna, again. Thank you, everybody. Make sure you tune in for our next episode of the Modern Marketing Loan Officer Podcast, brought to you by the Shining Star Hero program. Thank you. Have a great day.